Hello and welcome to this module where we discuss best practices and procedures for handling stock. In this section, we discuss certain practices that are common but not necessarily correct, and we give recommendations on the best way to handle stock. One of the biggest errors in the handling of stock is when people receive stock and they do not inspect it. Most of the time, the courier comes in a hurry, and it has become common practice that they simply leave the items at reception. The receptionist signs for them, then the store's person comes and collects them later. This will prove dangerous the day that the wrong items are supplied or goods were damaged in transit. Your receptionist signs the waybill that says the goods were received in good order. The best practice is to insist that the courier waits while you check your goods, because the waybill is a contract that says the person who delivers must wait until you inspect your goods and are satisfied. Otherwise, you must refuse to sign for the delivery. Secondly, we are tempted to issue stock and then record later on, because either people seem to be in a hurry, there is a crisis somewhere, so they just want the materials and they will come back and sign later on. Or you, as the store's person, you think it is now time to go home, so somebody comes on the last minute, you just give them stock and you decide, I will record the following day. Then come the following day, you are so busy you forget the transactions that you left out the previous day. You must have a policy that says items can only be issued out accompanied by a signed issue voucher, regardless of who is asking for those items. I've consulted for one municipality where they were issuing out parts on a Friday to artisans, and they did not record the items because they did not know how many they were going to use over the weekend. So they would only record on Monday after the artisan returns, and they say, out of the 5 you gave me, I used 3, therefore you must write an issue voucher for 3 items, and then those 2 they go back into stock as if they never went out. Many times there would be disputes because the person that took the items probably lost 1 item. When they come back, they now claim they only got 4 items. At other times, people would completely forget that items were issued on the Friday without being signed for. So the best practice is that every movement of stock has to be recorded as it happens. So on the Friday, when you issue out the 6 water meters, make sure they are all recorded as issued. On Monday, if there are any items that have not been used, there is a transaction that is called a store's return. You must enter that transaction to account for the 2 items that have not been used. So the whole history of the item has to be there. We need to know that 6 items went out on Friday and 2 items came back, because anything can happen to those 2 items that went out. They might come back damaged, so you can't simply put them back in stores as if they never went out in the first place. Another terrible mistake is that of adjusting stock balances immediately after stock take. Whenever you find variances after stock take, they can be a result of many different things. It is possible that some transactions were missed out and they were not entered. And the simple way of correcting that variance is by simply entering those transactions. So what you need to do is to print transaction history for each item that has got a variance, because the transaction history, when you now compare it with the physical receipts and invoices and purchase orders that you have, it will be easy for you to find that document that was not recorded in the system. It is only after you have reconciled all the transactions and you have discovered there is no problem with the transactions, that is the only time when you can now post an adjustment transaction. And as we said earlier on, you do not take an eraser and you rub the balance which is there and you put a new balance. You have to put a new transaction which is an adjustment transaction. So you are telling the system, I am changing the balance by so much, and the reason is because there was a stock take variance. For those people that are really strict about the accuracy of their stock, they will not adjust anything even for months and months, because they have to wait until every possibility has been accounted for. And once they are 100% happy that there is no other explanation for the difference, that is the only time when they make a stock adjustment. The other problem arises with respect to access to stores facilities. You might find a situation where there is familiarity between people working in stores and the artisans that come looking for spare parts. So because the person working in stores may not know every individual part, it's easy for them to tell the artisan to go into the shelves and to look for the item. When they find it, they must bring it to the counter for the transaction. The reason why there's a sign that says no personnel behind this desk except stores personnel is because the accountability for stock balances lies only with the people that are working in stores. So if you allow other people into the shelves, into the bin locations, and they're actually capable of coming out with stock that is not recorded, then you are the one who is going to be accountable for all those losses. So if there is a need for an artisan to go and identify an item, they must be accompanied by a person who is working in the stores. They look for the item together. When they find it, they come back and they record the transaction. Another problem also arises when higher ranked personnel send general workers to request for parts from stores. So the maintenance manager knows that the store's personnel know who he is. So he simply sends a general worker and says, go and tell the store's personnel that Mr. So-and-so needs 2 prepaid electricity meters. He says he will come and sign for it later on. That is a wrong practice. What you must do is you make the person who is collecting the items to sign for them. If need be, he can then write a narration that says he is signing on behalf of Mr. So-and-so. But the golden rule says there is no stock which must leave your stores without being signed for. Next, we look at the handling of liquid items. If you consider, for example, liquid soap that we use for cleaning in the workshops, in the factories, in the offices. Many times we receive it in containers of 20 liters or 50 liters. But when we are issuing it out, we are issuing in containers maybe of half a liter or 1 liter at a time. I found places where the store's personnel, they issue the whole container to themselves. So the store's lady would issue the whole 50-liter can of soap to herself, and then she starts dishing out 1 liter at a time. So these individual 1 liter transactions are not going into the system, because as far as the system is concerned, the 50 liters is gone already. There are a lot of loopholes because there is nobody to monitor whether the whole 50 liters was actually issued out to personnel, or half of the 50 liters found itself into the black market. So the best way is to change the unit of measure for handling that item. So instead of saying I bought 1 50-liter tin of soap, you say I bought 50 liters of soap. So the unit of measure is not 1 tin, but the unit of measure is the liter. So what you receive into stores is not 1 container, but you receive into stores 50 liters. Now when you start issuing out the 1 liter at a time, you start reducing that quantity from 50 to 49 until you get to 0. So there will always be discrepancies, but it is better to have a 5% or 2% discrepancy than not having a record whatsoever of the people who are actually using the soap. So earlier on, when we were discussing about dimensions, we say that you have to define the dimensions that give the most meaning to your information, to your data. So when it comes to these liquid products, you need to ensure that you use a unit of measure that makes it easy for anybody to understand the transactions that are happening. Another related product also is wire. So when we are dealing with a roll of wire, there is a temptation to enter into the system that you received 1 roll of wire. So you put the part number for a 100-meter roll of wire. When we go into the system, we see a quantity 1. But when you are issuing out that wire, you are not issuing out the whole roll of wire. You are measuring out in meters. So just like with the liquid soap, you do not record the roll of wire, but you record the number of meters that you have received. So the unit of measure now becomes the meter, not number of rolls. So when you record 100 meters received, then when you issue out 2 meters, the system now says you have 98 meters left. So you can issue out individual pieces of 1 meter, 10 meters, 15 meters until the whole 100 meters is finished. So there will always be some variances, but it is better than failing to record individual transactions. So make sure that as a stores person, you never issue any materials to yourself, hoping to then issue out in small quantities to the rest of the workers, because we need to keep records of who is using the different materials that are in stores. If you record yourself as the recipient of soap or wire, then we are not able to analyze where the products are actually going. So we need to always record the items against the actual people that request them. So there are a lot of other issues that we could discuss, but these are the few that I thought I could share with you. In the next module, we are now going to discuss how we can plan for and implement a computerized stock management system. So I'll see you in the next module.